Wow, do I have an amazing piece of content for you. Before I even was able to start filming this video, I called two separate people because that's how excited I was about what I uncovered in regards to Michael Bloomberg, the election, and this company, this secretive tech company called Hawkfish. So, I wanted to bring all of this together from my hours of research to present it to you and to get your feedback on what could be happening. I don't know, but I think we need to draw more light on things like this when they are happening, because this is why I think transparency with the internet is such a wonderful thing. Anyways, with that being said, if this is your first time here, what's good? My name is Sam, and for those of you who are returning, it's good to freaking see you. Okay, so let's get into it. This is from CNBC, Michael Bloomberg, and we're gonna walk through, and I'm gonna jump all over the place, but stay with me, because this story has many trees, or many limbs, but it all comes back to the same spot. So we're gonna go in different directions, and then we're gonna tie it all together, because this took a lot of data to put together. Okay, so I see a comment on YouTube that references Michael Bloomberg and Hawkfish. And Hawkfish was an interesting name. So I was like, let me check this out. And that was 6 hours ago. And the articles that come up are from CNBC and other news organizations, and it says Michael Bloomberg is plowing millions of dollars into secretive tech firm he founded months ago as he seeks the White House. Well, first of all, what is this secretive tech firm? And we're going to go back and forth, but let's go to over here. Let's go to what LinkedIn has up here for their Hawkfish, right? Because I looked all over the internet and I can't find anything. I found one other piece of data besides their LinkedIn, which is going to be super interesting. So Hawkfish is and I'm just reading off of their own LinkedIn page. Hawkfish is let me make this a little bit bigger, is a new startup to build state-of-the-art data and tech infrastructure for Democrats and progressive causes. This is going to get really interesting. Our clients are political campaigns, NGOs, advocacy groups, and PACs. Well, what is a PAC? We're about to touch on that, because this kind of sounds like a PAC to me when we actually look at the data. And you got to remember that when we're tying in the pieces later. Our first major customer is Michael Bloomberg for President 2020. And this is also interesting, right? Because this all ties together. But we have already done work on behalf of Democratic candidates in state elections such as Virginia in 2019. Interesting, right? When did Michael Bloomberg release that he was running for president? I believe it was in December. Why? Because he needed to know what the results were of this, if this worked, right? So, I don't know, I'm giving you the data, you decide. I'm trying to be objective. It just seems to be like seems like something's going on here. And so what I did is, if I came over here, this is an article from New York Times. At first 2020 campaign stop, Bloomberg boasts what his money can do. And this is on October 26, 2019. So I guess he announced in there. And one of the things in here, I'm just going to read you this paragraph. Mr. Bloomberg, who is one of the wealthiest men in the country, entered the diner with Nancy Guy, remember that name, a newly elected Virginia state legislator whose candidacy Mr. Bloomberg supported this fall. He noted to a reporter that the Virginia legislator had flipped this month from Republican to Democratic control, and that he had been able to, quote, help in the process, end quote. Interesting, right? Because let's take a look at this Nancy Guy person. So here's Nancy Guy, and this is the person, one of the people who was elected that received funds, or that he was able to help get elected, right? So if we come over here to her top donors, we look at this, and it's Beyond Carbon, and they've donated about double what anybody else has donated. It says Beyond Carbon Action Fund. Okay, well, does any of the other names stand out in here? Michael, no. Well, let's just go on a wild guess and see what Beyond Carbon Action Fund is. Well, that's exactly what we did. And what does that say up there in the corner there? Well, maybe I should check. You guys probably can't see this, but it is actually, there you go. It is Bloomberg Philanthropies. Yeah, say that 6 times fast. And they actually, so I did a little bit more research. It does look like he's actually trying to help the environment. So it does seem authentic because it's been so many years that he's been doing these things. But Bloomberg started the Beyond Carbon thing. So when you get to the level of billionaire where you have this much money, there's a level of sophistication that the vast majority of Americans can't seem to fathom the complexity and the nuances of all of this. And that's kind of like what's happening here. So we take a look at, well, this is Beyond Carbon's website, but what about Bloomberg Philanthropics, right? So I went over to their website, and Bloomberg launches Beyond Carbon, the largest ever coordinated campaign against climate change in the United States. And if we come down here, what are some of their stated things that they're trying to accomplish? Win state and local policy changes and help elect climate champions. It's pretty ambiguous what that could be used for, right? Well, if we come back over here, we already saw that Hawkfish did work for candidates in Virginia. We have Bloomberg at a fundraiser when he announced he's running for president, bragging to some reporter that he helped in that process of switching it from Republican to Democratic. He waits till, I don't know, this is just a I didn't look up let's actually check that right now. When did Michael Bloomberg announce his run for president? Let's see when and if this idea is right. Okay, November 24th. When were the elections? When were midterm elections? This is how I think. Apologize. The 6th. Okay, so this plays out exactly. So this makes it even more interesting. So why did he wait so long to announce his run for president, right? Like, there's already been many, many debates because he wanted to know it worked first. I don't know. Maybe not, right? The elections just ended and it worked and he was bragging about it at this thing, right? But let's take a closer look at Hawkfish, right? What is Hawkfish? What is it, right? That's what we want to understand. Even though we know something else going on, we already know that Michael Bloomberg has influence and control over this, and we're about to tie in some more to that because I can't find anything on Hawkfish except for this. So this weird, it's a web page for a job posting with Michael Bloomberg 2020. Make sure you guys can see that with the 2020 right here. And if you click that, strange, it goes right to his website. So he's definitely very closely tied to this company because he's recruiting with his website attached to it. But what's also interesting is down here, Hawkfish jobs. So we clicked on that. These are the jobs that are available. So I looked at the growth I looked at basically all of them, but the growth manager, let's take a look at them. New York City tech startup that is focused on supporting progressive politics and defeating Donald Trump. So that's in their job listing. This is what this person's coming on board to do, is defeat Donald Trump, right? We are run by successful senior leaders from the national Democratic political campaigns and experienced senior operators from the most prominent Silicon Valley technology companies. Okay. What does that mean? What is the company doing, right? We know that Bloomberg's tied to it. We know that it helped elect this lady, but we want to understand more because we're going to come back to that lady, that Nancy person. So first, let's take a look back at Hawkfish, right? So this is their LinkedIn profile. We're going to go to people, and LinkedIn does this cool thing where they actually put together these. Let me make my head a little bit smaller here so you get to see. They put together this where you get to see where they live and where they studied. But if you go to next, you get to see what they do, what they studied. Interesting, right? Because if we know what they studied and we know what they did, we can kind of get an idea what this company is doing, right? So what I did was, if you look at the top 3 on what they do, 4 of the people who are on LinkedIn who work for this company do marketing, do arts and design, and 3 people who do media and communications. Now the top 3 from the other side, 2 did advertising, 2 did political science and government, and 2 did film, cinema, and video studies. So it sounds like this is just a new media machine, right? Like an advertising company. Basically, that's what it is. Or some type of analytics company, right? Where you're putting out creative, right? But what about this little link right here where we can actually take a look at their profile? So what I did is I pulled up the people who have in their profile who work at Hawkfish, right? And I started poking around on some of these. And when we go to page 2, we see that there's a bunch of people here. This is in paid media, so they're doing some type of advertising right there. Digital paid media, again, some type of advertising right there. And these producer ones, I believe, are very similarly based on what their profiles are saying. And then there's a free writer and a creative director. So there's people are creating content, right? So it's basically like a mini news organization used to run ads, potentially, right? I mean, I think the dynamic is, if you look at it in an ROI, right? If you spend $100 million on lobbyists versus $100 million on running ads, you're going to get a much higher ROI by running it against ads against people who are going to call their congressman and be like, don't fucking do that, even if a lobbyist is trying to go the other direction, because that's how everybody's done it for so long. So if you think about it differently from a lobbying standpoint, running ads is way more effective to do than to go for the lobbying. So I actually pulled up a couple of the profiles here. This is from Vinay Sithi Kumar. He's head of machine learning at Hawkfish LLC. I currently lead the machine learning team at Hawkfish. Hawkfish is a political tech startup bringing cutting-edge machine learning data science targeting to progressive political campaigns in 2020 and beyond. We are hiring data scientists, data engineers, machine learning scientists, experts in data infrastructure reach out to him. And he used to work at Facebook. So that's kind of interesting. And then this lady here, Katie Wells, whatever her last name is. I apologize if you watch this, Katie. I didn't get your last name right. But what her bio says is Director of Content Production and Digital Strategy with deep experience creating, scaling, and distributing highly successful branded editorial content for digital, social, broadcast, and OTT. Most recently, she brought American and increased followers by 2,500% and basically helping propel the brand with 82,000 followers to be in the top 4 news publications on Facebook in the US. So that sounds pretty good, right? So I looked at some of her posts. She posted 5 days ago of an ad campaign, and she wrote, "Getting some good coverage for this video. Here's hoping 2020 sees much shorter lists." So this ad campaign, if you go over on Facebook, is actually Michael Bloomberg's. No shit, right? Kind of interesting. And you scroll down, she's been posting for hirings of different positions multiple times. So she's the chief content officer over there. But what about the actual ties to the DNC? And also, what about the super PAC that we mentioned earlier, right? Well, I'm going to get to those. And sorry about the abrupt right turn there, but Michael Bloomberg, this is an article again from CNBC, Michael Bloomberg firm Hawkfish, falsely told potential hires it would be the primary tech platform for the DNC. Interesting, and it goes on to say that Hawkfish was actually trying to recruit people and say that it was the primary tech firm for the DNC, which was corrected in early December. But I wonder what's going on there. I wonder who else is actually behind this, right? I don't know. I'd like to hear your feedback. I have no idea. I'm not saying anything nefarious is happening. It's just interesting, and I think more light needs to be brought to some of these things. But what is a super PAC? So that got me actually to Google, right? Where I said, what is a super PAC? And what came up from Oxford is a type of independent political action committee which may raise unlimited sums of money from corporations, unions, and individuals, but is not permitted to, and pay attention to this last little bit, not permitted to contribute to or coordinate directly with parties or candidates. Interesting, because that is coordinating directly with Bloomberg, right? But it's not a super. So what makes a super PAC, right? So we look at this. This is from Wiki, and what it says here is, at the U.S. federal level, an organization becomes a PAC when it receives or spends more than $1,000 for the purpose of influencing a federal election. Interesting. But we already know they're spending for a federal election. And he has control. And he's coordinated with it because he fucking owns it. Interesting, right? So what I did is I went over to, and we're about to tie this back into Nancy Guy. Yes, these are all over the place, and stay with me because I'm going to wrap this all up in a second here. But what I went over to is the Federal Election Commission website. So basically, the body of rules associated with political finance are on this website from my preliminary understanding. And register, and if you want to register as a super PAC, and this is their definition, super PACs are independent, expenditure-only political committees that may receive unlimited contributions from individuals, corporations, labor unions, and other political action committees for the purpose of financing independent expenditures and other independent political activity. The committee will not use those funds to make contributions, whether direct or in kind or via coordinated communications to federal candidates. Weird. Because wait a second, right? Hawkfish is spending money, right? Even if I'm paying them to spend money, they're building the creative to put out content. It kind of sounds like a super PAC to me. I don't know, right? Like, what are your thoughts? If you control it. Now, let's come down here. This is one of the things that has to be basically in this letter if you're filing for this. And I'm just going to read you the last sentence again, where this committee, this is what has to be in all super PACs, like documents and stuff. This committee will not use those funds to make contributions, whether direct or in kind, remember that in kind portion, or via coordinated communications to federal candidates or committees. So what I did is, let's go back over here to Nancy, Ms. Nancy Guy. And let's take a look at her donations. And we come over here, the $350,000 from Beyond Carbon, which is also Michael Bloomberg, company, entity, structure, organization, whatever you want to call it, contributed $350,000 to this lady. Now, this is in-kind donation for television advertising buy. And then, so about $330,000 came from that, and then the other $19,000 came from in-kind donation media production. Media production is actually making content. So, I mean, if you're going to hire somebody to do work for you, you're in direct communication with them to do the work, because they need to know what to do. But when we come over here, it says you can't via coordinated communications or in-kind donations, which that's exactly what this is. But it's from another entity. So at what point do we say, like, hey, we don't want to do this anymore? Right? Because where there's a will, there's a way. If you go farther enough down the paper trail, you can basically do all sorts of shit that, like, the vast majority of people watching this video have no idea about. There's many, many, many different ways of doing things. But I would like to know what your thoughts are on all of this. So just to wrap everything up, we have Michael Bloomberg, right, who is associated with Hawkfish. He's also started the Beyond Carbon, right, that has a policy mandate to focus on getting people elected who are associated with the same objectives of getting rid of carbon and different environmental impacts. And we have basically an ad agency that's going to be able to get that message out, that's going to be direct communication, and they're producing content, right? Because if we just saw that they're producing content for these players, which means that they have to be in communication with them. So how is this not a super PAC or some type of PAC? Or what am I missing? I don't know. Is this just down? Yeah, there's nothing wrong here. I don't know. Is there anything? I don't know. I'm not saying there is. I'm not saying there isn't. I don't know. I just found all this information, and I need your help to spread the message, to understand what is either going on here, or just bring more light into understanding of what's going on. Because when you have a vast amount of money, there's a different level of complexity that there's a big portion of the population just is clueless about of how things like actually work. If you know, when you start getting some money and stuff. So and it's interesting to see this, how everything's here with the internet, and you can kind of follow that paper trail. So if you want to help that out, make sure you share this video with somebody else. Or if you know somebody who is in the media, whether that's old school media or new school, like a podcast or YouTube channel, share this with them. I'd love to get on an interview with them. I appreciate you guys, and I will talk to you soon. Peace.